Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the massive Galactic Council station grow larger through the viewscreen. After 3 long years of talks and meetings, humanity was finally going to join the galactic community. The station was beautiful, with crystal towers that sparkled like diamonds against the black of space. "Sir, we're getting clearance to dock," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. Her voice carried excitement that Jake felt too. This was the day they had all worked toward. Admiral Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge, her uniform crisp and her face serious. She had fought in the Mars War and the Europa conflict, earning respect from every soldier in Earth's fleet. Today, she would sign the papers that would make humans equal partners with dozens of alien races. "Nervous, Admiral?" Jake asked with a smile. Lisa shook her head. "Excited. Dr. Rodriguez is already down in the shuttle bay with his equipment. He wants to start studying their technology right away." Dr. Alex Rodriguez was Earth's best scientist when it came to alien life. He had spent years learning about the different species in the galaxy. His research had helped humanity understand what they were getting into when they started talking with the Council 3 years ago. The docking went smoothly. Jake had never seen anything like the Council station's interior. The walls seemed to glow with their own light, and the corridors were wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. They passed beings that looked like walking trees, others that floated in the air, and some that Jake couldn't even begin to describe. Their guide was a Zephyrian named Kolvan. The Zephyrians looked almost human, except for their blue skin and silver eyes. Kolvan spoke perfect English and seemed friendly enough. "The Chancellor is very excited to meet with you," Kolvan said as they walked. "Your species has impressed us greatly." The council chambers were enormous. Jake counted representatives from at least 40 different species. Some sat in chairs like humans, others hung from the ceiling, and a few floated in tanks of liquid. At the center of it all sat Chancellor Veltar, the leader of the Galactic Council. Veltar was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer. When he spoke, his voice was smooth and musical. "Welcome, humans of Earth. Today marks a great day for our galaxy." Admiral Carter stepped forward. "Chancellor, we're honored to be here. Humanity looks forward to working with the Council." "Indeed," Veltar said. "Your species has such potential, such strength, such useful qualities." Something in the way he said useful made Jake feel uncomfortable, but he pushed the feeling aside. They had come too far to worry about word choices now. The ceremony began with speeches from different council members. They talked about cooperation, peace, and the bright future ahead. Dr. Rodriguez took notes on everything, fascinated by the different technologies he saw around the room. Then came time for the actual agreement. Veltar gestured, and a holographic document appeared in the air above them. As Jake read the words, his blood turned cold. This wasn't a membership agreement. It was a surrender document. According to the contract, humanity would become a protected species under Council guidance. Humans would provide labor for Council projects. Human colonies would be administered by Council governors. Human children would be educated in Council schools to become better workers. "There must be some mistake," Admiral Carter said, her voice tight with anger. Veltar's smile never wavered. "No mistake, Admiral. This is the standard arrangement for new species joining our community." "This isn't what we discussed for 3 years," Jake said, stepping forward. But those discussions served their purpose," Veltar replied. "We learned much about your military capabilities, your technology, your weaknesses. The information was quite valuable." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his scanner, his face pale. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures around human colonies. There are ships there. Lots of them." Veltar nodded. "Indeed. Your 12 outer colonies are now under Council protection. The transition has been quite peaceful. Your colonists are being relocated to more suitable accommodations." The truth hit Jake like a punch to the gut. The 3 years of negotiations had been a lie. The Council had been studying humanity, learning their secrets, preparing for this moment. While Earth's leaders talked about friendship and cooperation, Council fleets had surrounded human worlds. "You can't do this," Admiral Carter said, her hand moving toward her sidearm. Several alien guards stepped forward, weapons ready. Veltar raised a hand to stop them. Violence is unnecessary, Admiral. You have two choices. Accept the agreement, and your people will be treated well as they serve the greater galactic community. Refuse, and those 12 colonies will be less fortunate. Jake felt sick. Hundreds of thousands of humans lived on those colonies. Families, children, scientists, farmers. All of them now hostages to force Earth surrender. Dr. Rodriguez was still scanning, his equipment beeping softly. "There's something else," he whispered to Jake. "I'm reading similar energy patterns around 17 other star systems that used to have different species." The full scope of the Council's operation became clear. This wasn't just about humanity. The Council had done this before, many times. They would study a species, pretend to offer friendship, then force them into slavery or destroy them entirely. "How long do we have to decide?" Admiral Carter asked through gritted teeth. 30 standard days, Veltar said. "Enough time for you to return to Earth and explain the situation to your leaders. I'm sure they will see reason." The meeting ended there. Jake, Admiral Carter, and Dr. Rodriguez were escorted back to their ship under heavy guard. None of them spoke until they were safely aboard the Horizon and heading back toward Earth. 30 days, Admiral Carter said finally. 30 days to find a way out of this mess. Jake stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human families were prisoners. Somewhere out there, other species lived as slaves to the Council's greed. The galaxy wasn't the place of wonder and cooperation they had imagined. It was a prison ruled by beings who saw other species as nothing more than tools to be used. "We'll find a way," Jake said. "We have to." Dr. Rodriguez was already working at his console, analyzing the data he had gathered. "There might be others," he said. "Other species who want to fight back. If the Council has done this 17 times before, there might be survivors. Resistance groups." Admiral Carter nodded slowly. "Then we find them, and we show the Council what happens when you back humanity into a corner." The Horizon jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward Earth and an uncertain future. Behind them, the Council station continued its orbit, beautiful and deadly, a trap disguised as paradise. The war for humanity's freedom was about to begin. General Ryan Murphy sat in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching news feeds from across human space. 2 weeks had passed since the Horizon returned to Earth with its terrible news. The government was still arguing about what to do, but Ryan knew there was only one choice. They had to fight. Admiral Carter entered the room, followed by Colonel Kate Williams. Kate had spent years fighting pirates in the outer systems and knew more about guerrilla warfare than anyone in the fleet. "Any word from our people on the colonies?" Ryan asked. Kate shook her head. "All communications are being blocked by Council ships, but we're picking up some coded transmissions. It looks like some of our people are still free and organizing resistance." Dr. Rodriguez walked in carrying a datapad, his face grim. "I've been analyzing everything we learned at the Council station. The situation is worse than we thought." He activated the holographic display in the center of the room. Star maps appeared, showing the locations of different alien species. "The Council has been doing this for over 1,000 years, Alex explained. "They find a promising species, study them through fake negotiations, then either absorb them as workers or destroy them completely. I've identified 17 species that disappeared after contact with the Council." Admiral Carter studied the map. "Are any of them still alive?" "Some are," Alex said, highlighting several systems. "The Ashanti were a warrior race. The Council conquered them 50 years ago, but there are still resistance cells operating in the asteroid fields. The Helix were master engineers. They built most of the Council's current technology before being enslaved." "Can we contact them?" Kate asked. Ryan nodded. "I've already started reaching out through old smuggler networks. Captain Morrison is leading that effort. His diplomatic contacts are proving useful." At that moment, Jake Morrison's face appeared on the communication screen. He was aboard a disguised freighter, deep in Council space. "I've made contact with an Ashanti group," Jake reported. "Their leader is a warrior named Kessera. She's been fighting the Council for 20 years. They're willing to meet, but they want proof that humanity is serious about resistance. What kind of proof? Admiral Carter asked. A rescue mission. The Council is holding Ashanti prisoners on a mining station in the Vega system. If we can free them, Kessera will help us contact other resistance groups. Kate leaned forward. I can do it. Give me a small team and a fast ship. Too dangerous, Ryan said. We can't risk exposing our operations yet. Sir, with respect, we can't build a resistance without taking risks, Kate replied. Those prisoners have information we need, and showing the Ashanti that we're willing to fight alongside them could bring us dozens of allies. While they argued, Dr. Elena Torres worked in her laboratory 3 levels down. Elena was Earth's best computer expert, and she had been studying Council technology since the Horizon returned. What she found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Council's power came from their ability to coordinate hundreds of worlds. Their computer networks connected every ship, every station, every government building across the galaxy. If someone could disrupt those networks, the Council's empire would fall apart. But getting access to their central systems would be almost impossible. The networks were protected by security that had been built over centuries. Elena had been working day and night to find a weakness. She discovered something interesting about human-computer programming. Humans approached problems differently than other species. Where aliens used logical, predictable patterns, humans were creative and unpredictable. Council security systems were designed to stop logical attacks, not creative ones. Elena began developing what she called the Freedom Protocol. It was a virus that would spread through Council networks, but it didn't attack like normal viruses. Instead, it would learn and adapt, using human-style creativity to find new ways around security. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was already in action. Steve led Earth's most elite Special Forces unit, and he had been conducting secret rescue missions to the occupied colonies. His team had saved over 300 humans so far, but each mission revealed more of the Council's plans. Steve contacted the command center from his ship, the Defiant. Admiral, you need to see this, he said, his voice tight with anger. The communication screen showed the interior of a Council research facility. Human prisoners sat in cells, but these weren't normal jail cells. They were connected to machines that scanned their brains and bodies. They're not just holding our people, Steve explained. They're studying them, trying to figure out how to breed humans who will be better workers. They're also identifying people with leadership qualities. What happens to the leaders? Kate asked, though she feared the answer. They disappear, Steve said simply. The room fell silent. The Council wasn't just enslaving humanity. They were trying to redesign the human race to be more compliant. Future generations of humans would be born without the will to resist. Dr. Rodriguez spoke up. This changes everything. We're not just fighting for our freedom. We're fighting for our survival as a species. Admiral Carter stood up, her decision made. Kate, you have permission for the rescue mission. Steve, continue your operations, but be more careful. Alex, I want you to start mapping every resistance group in the galaxy. Elena, how long before your virus is ready? Elena's voice came through the intercom from her lab. 6 months, maybe less, but I'll need physical access to a major Council command center to upload it. Ryan looked at the star map again. Then we have 6 months to build an army. Over the following weeks, Jake Morrison made contact with resistance groups across the galaxy. The Ashanti warriors were fierce fighters who had never stopped believing in freedom. The Helix engineers had been forced to build Council technology, but they had also learned all its weaknesses. There were others too. The Valdris had been merchants and traders before the Council destroyed their economy. The Corin had been explorers, until they were forced to mine Council worlds. Each species had its own skills and its own reasons to hate the Council. Kate Williams successfully rescued the Ashanti prisoners from the Vega mining station. The operation was dangerous, but it proved to the galaxy that humanity was serious about fighting back. Kessera and her warriors joined the growing alliance. The resistance began calling itself the Liberation Front. They met in secret, sharing information and resources. Human ships carried Ashanti weapons. Helix engineers repaired human equipment. With advanced technology, Valdris traders moved supplies and people through Council space. Dr. Torres made another breakthrough with her virus research. She discovered that the Council's central command networks had a weakness. They were so confident in their security that they had connected everything together. If her virus could reach the core systems, it would spread everywhere at once. But the core systems were located on the Council homeworld, protected by massive fleets and energy shields. Getting there would require an army. Fortunately, that's exactly what the Liberation Front was building. Steve Parker brought news from his latest rescue mission. The Council is getting nervous, he reported. They're moving more ships to guard the colonies, but they're also pulling forces from other systems to do it. Admiral Carter smiled grimly. Then it's working. Every ship they move to watch us is one less ship protecting their empire. As the weeks passed, the resistance grew stronger. Humans learned to fight alongside alien allies. Trust was built through shared danger and common purpose. The galaxy's oppressed species were remembering what it felt like to hope. But time was running out. The Council was becoming suspicious of the increased resistance activity. Soon they would strike back with overwhelming force. The Liberation Front needed to be ready. The final preparations began for the largest military operation in galactic history. Freedom itself hung in the balance. 6 months had passed since the Council's betrayal, and the underground meeting on the asteroid base looked like something from a dream. Kessera, the Ashanti war chief, stood next to Admiral Carter, their height difference making them look like an odd pair. But Jake Morrison could see the respect in their eyes as they planned humanity's rebellion. The Council believes they have broken our spirits, Kessera said, her deep voice carrying the weight of 20 years of fighting. They are wrong. The Liberation Front now has cells on over 200 worlds. Mextel, the Helix engineering master, activated a holographic display that showed Council space. Red dots marked resistance strongholds, while blue lines showed supply routes that the Valdris traders had established. Our analysis shows the Council's weakness, Mextel explained through his translation device. His species communicated through electrical pulses, making speech difficult. They control through fear and central command, disrupt the command structure, and their empire crumbles. Colonel Williams studied the tactical display. What about their fleets? Even if we disrupt their communications, they still have thousands of ships. Ships need supplies, maintenance, and orders, Kessera replied. Without coordination, they become scattered targets instead of a unified force. Dr. Rodriguez had been quiet during the meeting, analyzing data from Liberation Front scouts. Now he looked up with excitement. I think I've found something. The Council doesn't just control through military force. They use psychological conditioning on all their subject species. He brought up another display showing brain scan patterns. Every species under Council rule receives regular education broadcasts. These broadcasts contain subliminal programming that makes populations more compliant and less likely to rebel. How do we counter it? Admiral Carter asked. By broadcasting our own signal, Elena Torres said as she joined the group via video link from Earth. I've been working on more than just the computer virus. I've developed a counter signal that can break the Council's conditioning. Jake felt a surge of hope. How many people could it reach? If we can access the Council's own broadcast network, potentially billions, Elena replied. But like the virus, it requires physical access to their central systems. The plan was becoming clear. The Liberation Front needed to capture the Council's command center on their homeworld, but that world was protected by the largest fleet in the galaxy. General Murphy's image appeared on the communication screen from Earth. I have news about the colonies. Our intelligence shows the Council is planning something called Project Harvest. They're going to begin large-scale genetic modification of human prisoners within the next month. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If the Council succeeded, future generations of humans would be bred to be perfect slaves, incapable of independent thought or resistance. How long before we can strike? Kessera asked. Admiral Carter looked around the room at representatives of a dozen different species, all united in their hatred of Council oppression. We need more time to coordinate, but we can't wait for perfect conditions. If we don't act, soon, we'll lose the human colonies forever. Captain Morrison had been studying intelligence reports from his deep cover operations. I might have a solution, he said. The Council is planning a victory celebration in 3 weeks. They're calling together representatives from across the galaxy to witness humanity's integration into their system. A distraction, Colonel Williams said, understanding immediately. While their leadership is focused on the celebration, their defenses will be reduced elsewhere. MXTEL manipulated the display, showing fleet movements around Council space. Confirmed. During previous celebrations, they pull ships from border systems to provide security for the ceremonies. Kesra smiled, showing teeth that were sharper than human ones. Then we give them a celebration they will never forget. The plan they developed was ambitious beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Liberation Front would launch simultaneous uprisings on 200 worlds during the Council celebration. While Council forces scrambled to respond to rebellions across their empire, a strike team would infiltrate their homeworld and plant Elena's virus in their central command systems. But the mission would require sacrifices. Someone would have to lead a diversionary attack to draw Council forces away from their homeworld. It would be a suicide mission. I'll do it, General Murphy volunteered when the plan was transmitted to Earth. Absolutely not, Admiral Carter replied immediately. We need you to coordinate Earth's defenses. Then I'll go, said Colonel Williams. I've been fighting in space longer than anyone else. Before anyone could argue, Lieutenant Commander Parker's voice came through the communication system. Actually, I have a better idea. What if the diversionary attack wasn't a suicide mission? Steve Parker was currently operating near the Rigel system, where the Council maintained a major fortress. This fortress controls communications for the entire border region. If we can capture it instead of just attacking it, we could use their own systems to coordinate the uprisings. Jake Morrison studied the tactical data Parker was sending. It's risky, but it could work. Instead of sacrificing a fleet, we turn their own fortress against them. The next 3 weeks were a blur of preparation. Resistance cells across the galaxy received their orders through coded transmissions hidden in merchant shipping manifests. Ashanti warriors taught human soldiers how to fight with energy weapons. Helix engineers showed both species how to disable Council technology. Elena Torres worked around the clock to finish both the computer virus and the psychological countersignal. She had to compress years of work into weeks, but human determination pushed her beyond what should have been possible. The virus is ready, she reported during the final planning meeting, but I'll need to come with the strike team to install it properly. Too dangerous, Admiral Carter said. We can't risk losing you. You can't risk the virus failing because someone else installed it wrong, Elena replied firmly. This is too important for half measures. Dr. Rodriguez had been analyzing Council defensive patterns and found another opportunity. Their homeworld security relies heavily on automated systems. If we can upload the virus to their defense network first, it might disable their shields and weapon platforms. The pieces were falling into place, but everyone knew the next few days would determine the fate of the galaxy. If the Liberation Front failed, billions of beings would remain enslaved forever. If they succeeded, it would begin a new age of freedom among the stars. Captain Morrison prepared for the most dangerous mission of his life. He would lead a small team to infiltrate the Council homeworld during the celebration. His diplomatic experience would help them blend in with the crowds of alien dignitaries. Admiral Carter gathered the human fleet at a secret base in the Centauri system. Ashanti warships joined them, along with Helix support vessels and Valdris transports carrying supplies and reinforcements. Colonel Williams reviewed the assault plans for the Rigel fortress one more time. The attack would begin the moment the Council celebration started. Timing would be critical. Across the galaxy, resistance fighters checked their weapons and said goodbye to their families. Many would not survive the coming battle, but all of them believed their sacrifice would be worth it if future generations could live free. The Liberation Front was ready. After centuries of Council oppression, the galaxy's enslaved peoples were about to strike back with everything they had. The Revolution was about to begin. The council celebration was magnificent and terrible at the same time. Jake Morrison watched from the crowd as Chancellor Veltar spoke to thousands of alien dignitaries about humanity's peaceful integration into galactic society. Giant screens showed images of human colonies now under council control, with human workers building monuments to their new masters. Jake wore the disguise of a Valdris trader, his human features hidden beneath a holographic mask. Elena Torres stood beside him, disguised as his assistant. She carried the virus and counter-signal programs in a device that looked like a simple data pad. "The central command center is 3 levels down," Elena whispered through their private communication link. "Security will be lighter during the ceremony." Around the galaxy, resistance fighters waited for Jake's signal. In the Rigel system, Admiral Carter prepared her fleet for the assault on the Council fortress. On 200 worlds, Liberation Front cells checked their weapons one final time. The moment came when Veltar began displaying recordings of human children being educated in Council schools. The images showed young humans learning to accept their role as servants, their natural curiosity and independence being systematically destroyed. Jake activated his communicator. "All units, this is Freedom Leader. Execute Operation Exodus." Across the galaxy, the revolution exploded into action. On the mining world of Kepler 394, Ashanti warriors led human prisoners in an assault on their guards. The Council soldiers were caught completely off guard as their broken captives suddenly fought back with coordinated precision. In the Rigel system, Admiral Carter's fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly on top of the Council fortress. Colonel Williams led the first wave of assault ships, using tactics that the Council's rigid military doctrine couldn't counter. "Remember, we need that fortress intact," Carter broadcast to her forces. "Take their communications array, but don't destroy it." The Council forces at Rigel had expected attacks from multiple directions over several hours. Instead, the Liberation Front hit them from everywhere at once. Human ships dove through the fortress's defensive grid, while Ashanti fighters attacked from above and below simultaneously. On the Council homeworld, Jake and Elena made their way through the celebration crowds toward the command center. The corridors were filled with alien dignitaries, all celebrating humanity's defeat. Jake felt sick watching them congratulate each other on enslaving an entire species. They reached the first security checkpoint without incident. Jake's forged credentials identified him as a legitimate trader with business in the lower levels. The guards barely glanced at Elena, assuming she was just another servant. The real challenge came at the entrance to the command center itself. Here, the security was much tighter. Energy scanners examined every person and object trying to enter. Elena's virus programs were hidden in her data pad, but sophisticated scans might detect them. "I'm detecting a problem," Elena whispered as they approached the scanners. "The device is showing up as more complex than it should be," Jake thought. Quickly, "Follow my lead," he said, then spoke loudly to the guards. "I need to report a security breach in the Valdris Trading District. My assistant has the evidence." The guards looked interested. Security breaches during the celebration would be taken seriously. "What kind of breach?" one of them asked. "Smugglers trying to bring weapons into the ceremony," Jake lied smoothly. "My assistant recorded their activities." He gestured to Elena's datapad. "The evidence is all here." The guards quickly escorted them through security, more concerned about potential weapon smugglers than carefully scanning Elena's equipment. Within minutes, they were inside the command center. Meanwhile, the battle at Rigel was intensifying. The Council fortress was heavily armed, but the Liberation Front had advantages the Council hadn't expected. Human pilots flew in unpredictable patterns that confused automated defenses. Ashanti warriors boarded Council ships and fought with a fury that shocked their enemies. Colonel Williams led her team through the fortress's outer hull, cutting through armor plating with Helix-designed tools. "Team 2, secure the power core. Team 3, take the communications array. Team 4 with me to the command deck." The Council officers inside the fortress couldn't understand what was happening. Their intelligence said the humans were defeated and their allies were scattered resistance cells. Instead, they faced a coordinated military assault by multiple species working together. On hundreds of other worlds, similar scenes played out. Liberation Front cells emerged from hiding and struck Council installations simultaneously. The Council's communication networks were overwhelmed with reports of uprisings across their entire empire. Dr. Rodriguez led a team that liberated a Council research facility on Europa Centauri. What they found there made him sick with rage. The Council had been experimenting on captured humans and other species, trying to find ways to make them more obedient. Destroy everything, Rodriguez ordered his team. Every piece of equipment, every research file. This ends today. Back on the Council homeworld, Jake and Elena reached the central computer core. It was a massive chamber filled with crystalline processors that controlled communications across the galaxy. Elena immediately began connecting her equipment. "How long do you need?" Jake asked, watching the corridor for guards. 5 minutes for the virus, another 5 for the counter signal, Elena replied, her fingers flying over her controls. The virus will spread through their entire network, but the counter signal needs time to reach every world. Jake checked his communicator. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The uprisings were succeeding, but Council reinforcements were beginning to respond. They needed the virus to work soon. At Rigel, Admiral Carter's forces had broken through the fortress's outer defenses. Colonel Williams and her assault team had reached the command deck, but they were facing heavy resistance from Council Marines. "Williams, to Carter," Kate broadcast while firing her weapon at attacking soldiers. "We're pinned down, but we're close to the communications array." "Hold your position," Carter replied. "I'm sending reinforcements." The battle for the command deck was brutal. Council soldiers fought desperately to protect their communications equipment, knowing that losing it would cripple their ability to coordinate defenses across their empire. Elena finished uploading the virus and began installing the counter signal program. "Virus is active and spreading," she reported. "Starting counter signal deployment now." Across the galaxy, Council computer systems began failing as Elena's virus spread through their networks. Automated defenses shut down. Communication links went dead. Administrative systems crashed. The Council's carefully maintained control started falling apart. On worlds where the psychological conditioning broadcasts stopped, entire populations began waking up from decades of mental suppression. Species that had forgotten their desire for freedom suddenly remembered what they had lost. "Jake, we have a problem," Elena said urgently. "Security forces are heading this way. Someone detected the virus." Jake could hear footsteps and alien voices in the corridor outside. "How much longer?" 2 more minutes for the counter signal to fully deploy. Jake drew his weapon and prepared to buy Elena the time she needed. The fate of billions of beings depended on those 2 minutes. At Rigel, Colonel Williams finally broke through to the communications array. "Carter, we've got it. Patching you through to the Council command network now." Admiral Carter's voice suddenly echoed through speakers across Council space, broadcasting on their own communication channels. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Liberation Front. To all enslaved peoples of the galaxy, the chains of oppression are breaking. Rise up and reclaim your freedom." The message reached every Council world simultaneously. On planets where resistance cells had been waiting for years, the uprising exploded into full revolution. The Council's empire began collapsing from within. In the command center, Jake held off the guards long enough for Elena to complete her work. The counter signal was now broadcasting across the galaxy, breaking the psychological conditioning that had kept billions of beings under Council control. "It's done," Elena said. "Both programs are fully deployed." As if responding to her words, alarms began sounding throughout the Council homeworld. The virus had reached their defense systems, and their planetary shields were failing. The revolution had reached the point of no return. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council's empire crumbled faster than anyone had imagined possible. Elena's virus cascaded through their computer networks like wildfire, disabling defense systems and communication arrays across thousands of worlds. Within hours, the mighty galactic government that had ruled for centuries found itself blind, deaf, and defenseless. Jake Morrison and Elena Torres fought their way out of the Council Homeworld's command center as the planet's defenses collapsed. Around them, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows in the corridors as automated systems failed one by one. The celebration above had turned into chaos as alien dignitaries tried to flee a world that was no longer safe. "The virus is working perfectly," Elena reported as they reached their hidden shuttle. "Council coordination is down to less than 30% and falling." Admiral Carter's Liberation Front fleet arrived at the Council homeworld just as its planetary shields failed completely. The sight of human and alien ships working together in the skies above the Council's capital sent a clear message to the galaxy. The age of oppression was over. On Rigel, Colonel Williams coordinated the galactic uprising from the captured fortress's communication center. Reports flooded in from across Council space as enslaved populations rose up against their masters. The Ashanti had liberated 3 star systems in the first day alone. The Helix had taken control of the industrial worlds where they had been forced to work as slaves. "Admiral, you need to see this," Williams called from her command station. "We're getting surrender requests from Council governors on over 50 worlds. Their local forces are abandoning them." The psychological countersignal had done more than just break conditioning. It had awakened something in the enslaved species that the Council thought they had destroyed forever: hope. Across the galaxy, beings who had accepted their fate as servants suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Dr. Rodriguez landed on the liberated research facility at Europa Centauri, where he found thousands of prisoners from dozens of species. Many were scientists and leaders who had been captured during the Council's conquest of their worlds. Now they were free to rejoin the fight for liberation. "The knowledge these people have," Rodriguez reported to Admiral Carter. "They know every detail of how the Council operates, their weaknesses, their secret bases, their hidden resources. But the revolution wasn't without cost." Lieutenant Commander Parker led rescue operations to free human prisoners from the genetic modification facilities, and what he found there was horrifying. The Council had been changing captured humans at the genetic level, trying to breed future generations who would be incapable of rebellion. "We can reverse most of the modifications," Dr. Torres reported after examining the victims. "But it will take time and careful treatment. Some of the psychological damage may be permanent." As the days passed, the scope of the Council's defeat became clear. Their scattered military forces, cut off from central command, either surrendered or fled to the galaxy's outer rim. World after world declared independence and joined the Liberation Front. Chancellor Veltar and the surviving Council leadership attempted to escape to a hidden fortress beyond the galactic edge, but Captain Morrison had anticipated their retreat. Human and Ashanti ships intercepted the fleeing Council ships at the edge of known space. The final confrontation was brief. Veltar's flagship, stripped of its advanced defensive systems by Elena's virus, could barely fight back. When Morrison's boarding party captured the bridge, they found the Council leaders in a state of shock, unable to believe their 1,000-year empire had collapsed in a matter of days. "How?" Veltar asked as human soldiers secured the bridge. "You were defeated. Broken. We studied you for years." Morrison looked at the alien leader who had tried to enslave humanity. "That was your mistake. You studied our technology and our military, but you never understood what makes us human. You never understood that we don't stay defeated." The trials that followed became a defining moment for galactic civilization. Representatives from every liberated species gathered on the neutral world of Haven Station to judge the Council leaders. The evidence of their crimes was overwhelming. Entire species wiped out, planets strip-mined to barren rocks, billions of sentient beings enslaved or killed. But the trials were about more than punishment. They were about establishing principles for a new galactic community. Dr. Rodriguez worked with representatives from dozens of species to create a charter for what would become the Galactic Federation. "No species shall have dominion over another," Rodriguez read from the draft charter. "All sentient beings have the right to self-determination. Diversity of thought and culture shall be preserved and celebrated." The Federation would be nothing like the Council. Instead of a hierarchy with ruling and servant species, it would be a true democracy where every world had an equal voice. decisions would be made through cooperation and compromise, not force and intimidation. General Murphy took charge of the massive humanitarian effort needed to rebuild devastated worlds and reunite scattered populations. Human engineering teams worked alongside Helix technicians to restore damaged planets. Ashanti warriors helped maintain peace in regions where Council loyalists still caused trouble. The human colonies that had been held hostage were among the first to be liberated. Families torn apart by the Council's occupation were reunited after months of separation. Children who had been subjected to conditioning programs needed extensive therapy to recover their natural curiosity and independence. Colonel Williams established the Federation Defense Force, designed not for conquest but for protection. The new military doctrine emphasized rapid response to threats and protection of the weak, rather than expansion and domination. "Never again," Williams said during the Defense Force's founding ceremony. "Never again will any species face the threat of subjugation. We stand guard so that all beings can live free." Elena Torres became the Federation's first director of technology, overseeing the development of new systems that would serve all species equally. Her virus had saved the galaxy, but her greater contribution was ensuring that advanced technology would be shared freely rather than hoarded by a ruling elite. The recovery took years, but gradually the galaxy began to heal. Trade routes reopened as former slave worlds became prosperous partners. Scientific research flourished as species shared knowledge instead of hiding it. Art and culture bloomed as beings rediscovered their heritage after decades of suppression. On the 5th anniversary of liberation, Admiral Carter stood before the first full session of the Federation Assembly. Representatives from over 300 worlds filled the Great Hall, speaking dozens of languages but united in their commitment to freedom. "5 years ago we were slaves," Carter said in her address. "Today, we are partners. The price of our freedom was high, paid in blood and sacrifice by beings from across the galaxy. We honor their memory by ensuring that the freedom they died for will never be taken away again." The galaxy had learned hard lessons about the corruption of power and the importance of accountability. The Federation's constitution included safeguards to prevent any group from gaining too much control. Regular elections, term limits, and checks and balances ensured that the Federation would serve its members rather than ruling them. Captain Morrison took command of the Federation's first joint species exploration vessel, the UFS Unity. Their mission was to venture beyond the galactic rim, searching for new worlds and new life. But unlike the Council's expansion, this exploration was about invitation rather than conquest. "We go in peace," Morrison told his diverse crew as they prepared for their first mission. "We offer friendship to those who want it, aid to those who need it, and respect to all we encounter." The Unity's crew included humans, Ashanti, Helix, Valdris, and representatives from a dozen other species. They worked together as equals, each contributing their unique skills and perspectives to the mission. Dr. Rodriguez established the Federation Science Institute, where researchers from all species worked together to push the boundaries of knowledge. The Institute's first major project was developing technology to heal worlds damaged by Council strip mining operations. As the Unity disappeared into hyperspace on its first voyage of exploration, those watching from Federation worlds knew they were witnessing the beginning of a new age. The galaxy had been united not through conquest, but through the shared struggle for freedom. The scars of Council oppression would take generations to fully heal, but the Federation had given the galaxy something more precious than peace: hope. Hope that differences could be celebrated rather than feared. Hope that strength came from unity rather than domination. Hope that all beings, no matter how different, could work together to build something better than what came before. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, shining down on free worlds where children grew up knowing they could be anything they dreamed of becoming. The galaxy belonged to all its children now, and they would guard that freedom with their lives. Humanity had struck back against those who betrayed them, but their true victory was showing the galaxy a better way to live. The age of oppression was over. The age of freedom had begun.